As Britain is besieged by its third heatwave of the year, we have decided to trade the hot skies for the hot seat. We are answering your questions, part 2.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. You join us once again, thankfully this time in an air-conditioned room.
Yes, we're in a cafe.
It's getting unbearable and I'm glad we're not at a circuit.
Agreed.
I'm saying that we aren't missing it, but
yes,
I'm glad we're not racing in it.
Agreed. We're in a cafe out of hours. We have permission. We're not broken in. And it is aircon and it is glorious. So yes, we are here once again to finish off what we delivered a couple of weeks ago, which is part 2 of us answering your questions. Did you say someone submitted one on another?
They had on YouTube.
We'll come back to that at the very end then. So I've got the docket from last time. We'll go through that. And if there's time, we'll do the last one.
If you haven't already, do go and watch the previous video. There are all sorts of styles of questions, and the same for this one as well. All questions you want to know, and any further questions, do drop them in the comments down below.
Yep, if you missed the first one, first of all, what are you doing? If you have the bell on, if you're subscribed, you wouldn't have missed it, would you? But there will be a mixture of fun and serious. And if you haven't checked out the first part, when you finish watching this one, go back and watch that part 1 as well. And if we don't get enough time today to go through all of them, we will do a part 3 and pick up any other questions, as you just mentioned there. Should we go straight into it then?
We shall, yeah.
Should we start with a fun one to begin with as well?
Yeah, go on then.
The first fun one is from Hoppers Motorsport. What event stuck by you, as the one that was memorable? Sorry, I can't read. What event stuck by you as one that was memorable and why? There we go. I'm presuming he means in the touring car world, otherwise I'd mention one of my birds.
Yeah, I think it probably, in my mind, it has to be one that either I've been to.
Yes. Because
of the feeling of being there and the events that have gone on. And the first one that comes to mind in that realm.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Go on.
It's Camish's brake failure.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's Knock Hill.
Oh, okay.
One, because it was a really good trip and a really good journey for us. Brilliant weekend away. We didn't argue. And the racing was brilliant. And the thing that comes to my mind straight away is how we were watching at the bottom of Duffer's Dip just to see like cars with windscreen wipers on, and we're going, well, hang on, it's dry. And then this rain just come across the circuit. And it was just like, what the hell has gone on? And although we got soaked, it was a brilliant race. And the whole weekend was brilliant.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
But Camish was the other one that I was thinking of.
Camish is the one that comes straight to my mind because as the resident optimist of the podcast, I immediately went for a negative experience. I think it's just because of the shock, having been trackside. It was almost pretty much a done deal at that point that Camish was going to be the champion. He was more than well enough ahead, and Turkson wasn't making his way through the field enough to really challenge Camish for the title, because it was a case of him having to finish higher than Camish.
Literally lighting up the road ahead of him, however.
And I do remember as well, you and I sort of saying to each other, those brakes are blowing. Yeah. And then it was just the silence when he went off, just sort of the... You could hear
what's happened.
Yeah, you could hear the cliche. You could hear a pin drop. It was like, oh my god!
Just watching at the bottom of Paddock Hill on that screen, going, what's just happened? And the fact that it was 2 laps to go. If you'd got past those 2 laps, he'd have been champion. And where could he possibly be now, having gone on from that?
Agreed. My other one that comes to mind, just very quickly, is it must have been 2000 and. What was the year he won the 2006 was the first Integra, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was Silverstone. It was another big crash. It was Thompson, Plato, and Jordan coming together early on. It was quite a serious injury for Mike Jordan, airlifted to hospital with a punctured lung. That comes back to my mind because I was very young at the time, unlike I am now. And it sort of brought home to me from an early age just how dangerous this sport can be. And I think I can sometimes get lost that because most of the time drivers get out looking a bit cross, but maybe a bit shaken, but generally okay. And it was also, sort of early.
With some of the accidents that we see, we go, okay, these cars are really incredibly safe. To have an injury or something serious happen as a result of one of those, we're reminded that no one's like impermeable to what's going on.
Exactly.
And anything can happen.
Exactly. It was an early lesson to young Russell about how this sport I would grow to love and talk about on YouTube how dangerous it could be. We've got another one from Hoppers Motorsport, so we'll do both at the same time. This is a bit more of a serious one.
Yep.
would the Super Tourer era survive if it carried on after 2000? Then my immediate response to this is no, it didn't survive for a reason. The money was out of control. That's why it didn't survive. So the reason that we lost that era of touring cars is because the money that was being chucked around was incredibly high. You only have to read, I'm not going to advocate particularly for Jason Plato, but his book goes in some of the figures here. Some of the drivers were on six-figure salaries, it is understood.
It seems bizarre nowadays to look back at those drivers and see how much they were being paid to race within the touring cars, whereas we're now seeing drivers now who are struggling to get budgets together to be able to get onto the grid for a full season. When you take into account the sponsorship and the stuff that we had back in those days, it's unbelievable how much money was rolling throughout the sport. And unfortunately, when you get that happen, you will, and we've talked about this before, you'll get a plateau and then you'll get it fall off.
And also,
because the interest in it will gradually die away if things aren't kept fresh.
Without using my politics A level here and making this too political, the 90s were a very different time. Britain was in a much different place in the 90s in terms of money, the haves and have-nots, and where money was being spent in particular. It was kind of, you look at football, we had the sky explosion of money coming into football in the 90s. There's still a lot of money in touring car, in racing in general. Now it's a lot more expensive, and manufacturers are facing lots of external pressures in the world. I think we spoke about this on part one about the world is an ever-changing place, and we've all seen a cost of living go up. And I think that for manufacturers now, what is more important? Is it sustaining the actual stuff that makes the money, which is selling cars, or is it having a bit of fun and going racing? And for most manufacturers, understandably, it's going to be car production, car sales first.
Arguably, it was twofold. There was obviously a change of regulations that came in, and we, as spoken about before, we changed regulations to keep things fresh and exciting and new. Sometimes those change of regulations don't work, and that was probably very much the attitude that came after those change of regulations, where we saw loads of manufacturers drop out, loads of teams drop out, and we were down to maybe 6, 8, 10 cars that were all vying. Not even all of those manufacturer entries in those early 2000s.
Yeah, and I also think that when money gets to the levels it can get to, inevitably there will be the bubble will burst. And I think we're about to see this in football with some of the transfer fees that are going around for, in my mind, bang average players that are now going for over £100 million. I think that we are going to see in the next 10 years football's bubble is going to burst because the cost is getting out of control. I think F1 saw the writing on the wall, which is why they brought the cost cap in, because I think they were worried about some of the spiraling numbers we were seeing in that sport. And I know
it also helps with F1 specifically. It helps protect those smaller teams as well, to be able to keep them interested rather than just having these big conglomerates come in, take over, and go, right, we're going to win everything.
Yeah.
It keeps competition there.
I think it's also important to stress as well is that touring cars hasn't been terrible since the 2000s. A lot of people online, I'm not saying this is the gist of the question from Hoffers, but a lot of people are saying, Monar is something like the 90s and the super touring era. No, it's not, but let's not pretend that we're now gone from a elite perfect championship to matchbox racing. This is still a very good sport, and we've still seen some incredible years.
Still big to try and achieve. We've heard rumours within the paddock that if you were looking to get a WSR seat a couple of seasons ago, you needed near on £1 million to be able to even go racing before you then add in all the tyres, damages, everything that goes along with racing.
Absolutely. Right. We have one here from Stuart. How did you both get into watching touring cars, and what attracted you to the sport? Would you like to start?
I've always been a bit of a petrol head.
You came out smelling of oil.
Yeah. When I grew up, everywhere I used to go, it had to be by
You always
car.
bought the weather?
No, by car, because of where I live, as you know. And so I was always interested in cars. I always had little toy cars when I was younger, and the fact of seeing cars go faster and faster on TV, whether it be F1, GTs, rallying, touring cars, I was always very much interested in that. And being a competitive guy, as you very much know.
Yeah, I found that out again last night to my detriment, yeah.
The bringing cars and competition together, for me, creates excitement. And anywhere I could find that in the top level, not even necessarily top level, so much club racing I've seen as well. It's always fun to watch, in my eyes, and therefore that brought me into the world of touring cars. Lucky enough, I was able to go and start watching touring car events from a relatively young age when children could still get in for free.
They still do, to be fair. Under 13s are still free.
And from there, it just grew and grew, and being able to follow the championship for so long and look at the drivers who are coming through, maybe from the smaller formula, going on, doing well in the touring cars, and then even moving on to possibly bigger and better things. I find it exciting. It keeps my passion alive for it. And it's a good thing to do for 10 weekends a year.
Mine is cliche. Dad liked it. I watched it with Dad on the telly. I had Toka 2 touring cars on PlayStation 1. I remember seeing an Audi, which I believe was Muller's, being put sideways at Paddock Hill Bend on the telly, and was hooked from there, really. And like you, as I started to get a bit older, Dad started taking us to race events. For some reason, he's a big Plato fan, Lord knows why. But yeah, and we're quite fortunate where we live that we have got quite a few tracks on our doorstep. We are close to Snetterton, we are close to Donington. Rockingham was very much on our doorstep as well, when that was still a circuit. So yeah, I mean, what attracted me to the sport is that I think it's just the excitement. It's, a lot. We talk about F1 a lot on this podcast. We're not the P1 with Matt and Tommy show, but F1 has been a hard watch for me. I've fallen in and out of love with F1 a lot because a lot of it is boring, whereas I don't. You'll think differently, but to me it's boring. Whereas touring cars, there's action at every single turn, at all parts of the field, and I've always been attracted to the close racing. And also, it sounds trite, when you're young growing up, the crashes are cool. They're not as cool when you're an adult and you understand the money and the impact and the health, etc. When you're a kid watching stuff on the telly, you like crashes. You like racing that ends in a bang. It's childish, but it's what we like.
I think what my interest has grown as I've gotten older, where I've been able to understand it more and more. And with my job nowadays, I work with cars day in, day out, so I can kind of understand the aspects that the engineers go through to go, right, how are we going to make this car? How are we going to make it better? How are we going to find these few tenths and even hundredths of a second to try and make this car the best that we can for a season, for a weekend, for a specific race, to go out and try and win a championship? And that's through all forms of motorsport, not just touring cars.
Next one up then is from Joshua, and this is quite an apt one given where we are and where we have been for the last couple of years. If Sutton and Ingram had the same car, who would win? Now I'm going to give a one-word answer to this. Sutton.
Yeah.
He's the quicker driver. For me, you only have to look at what he's won it in. He's won it in a Subaru canal boat. He's won it in an Infiniti that no one had ever heard of. And he's, okay, the Ford Focus, fair enough. We have seen the Ford Focus before. He came in an MG that was mid and was quick in it. He's been quick in everything he drives from the off. There's never a bedding in period of him. Ingram is a phenomenal racer. He's a phenomenal talent. There's no doubt about that. And I think Ingram is the better qualifier out of the two if I was to play top jumps. But I think the overall package, Sutton, is the quicker driver. There's no doubt in my mind.
For me, it's more down to his ability to fight as well. He has that tenacity about him. It's almost a never say die attitude, whereas Ingram sometimes can be a little bit accepting of the fact of, okay, I'm only going to finish fifth, whereas Ash is always right to the final lap, final bend, I'm going for it. Maybe not to the extent that Plato used to be. Maybe he's got a little more conservative nature about him, but he knows what he wants from a car. He knows how to get what he wants from a car, and that overall means that if you stick him in anything alongside Ingram, I think he's going to have that edge.
Yeah, I think 2 points that come to mind quickly on that is that, first of all, I've never seen a driver who can overtake to such the fine margin that Sutton can. And he does it time in and time out. That's the thing. It's not just one or two. I've never seen a better overtaker in the touring cars. My second point is that I think you're right about the mentality, is that if they go wrong with the setup, which is rare, I would back Sutton to get a better result than Ingram.
Yep.
He's able to drive around problems, in my opinion, better and quicker than Ingram can, in my opinion.
And harking towards F1 once again, is kind of what Alonso would do. He would normally pull the best out of any car. Same with Vettel to some extent as well. When he was in a poor Ferrari, he was still getting decent results. And dare I say, at the moment, in an Aston Martin that is very poor, that's probably been his main downfall, and age might be against him now.
Okay, we've got an anonymous one. Exciting. What is your opinion on the rule of limited boost and using the hardest tyre available for the podium finishes of the previous race? Well, I'll let you go first because I'll be ranting on this for about 2 hours.
So this is obviously to do with the latest regulation update for this season, and how the boost allocation is working, and the combination of that for race 2 then almost pulling back those that have had the success in race one. Touring cars has always had gimmicks, if you want to call them this. And
I do, by the way, yes.
Okay. I thought you might.
I do, yes. I call them much more vigorous four-letter words, but yes, we'll go with a gimmick.
So yeah, touring cars has always really had gimmicks because they feel that is the best way to keep the competition alive throughout a weekend specifically. So having three races across a weekend, I think they understood fairly early on that they needed to try and have 2-3 different winners across a weekend, as many different podium scorers as possible, to try and keep fans interested with trying to keep the championship as interesting for as long as possible. Nowadays, we have 2 drivers in Ingram and Sutton who are very much able to kind of drive around that fact, and some gimmicks work better than others in pulling them back and holding them back. Finding the fine line as to what is, quote, right, which is not probably the right term in the first place, but finding the right balance between having competition throughout the whole grid, making the sport interesting throughout a whole season and throughout a whole weekend, I think is really difficult.
I agree.
I don't particularly like how it's been done for this season.
Shall I unleash hell?
Yes.
Okay.
How is your soapbox? Have you reinforced it?
I struggle with the notion. I agree with what you're saying that you have to keep it interesting, and to do that you have to accept a certain level of gimmick. I always struggle with the notion that you punish people for doing well. I don't like the fact that Napa have had their engine turned down because they're better than everybody else, etc. But I do accept that if you want to keep the racing close and interesting and the championship close and interesting, you have to accept that there'll be a level of punishment for doing well, whether it be ballast or boost, etc.
Can I put something in there?
Go on.
We've seen, and I'm going to go over to F1 once more, we've seen regulation changes in F1 where engineers and designers have managed to design around the rules to get that advantage for a substantial amount of time. For example, the Brawn GP car in 2009, first, 6, 7, 8 races, they won all of them between the 2 drivers. And they built a car which fell within the regulations, but was brilliant. It worked around them in the right ways to get the most out of the car. And eventually that was banned for the season following. I very much disagree against changing regulations within the season.
Agreed. And this is a safety issue.
Agreed, yes. But there are always going to be cars, teams, designers, engineers to try and find ways around these problems, because that's why the sport is here. It is a problem-solving sport to try and find the best way or the shortest amount of time to get to the finish line.
Yeah, but it annoys me that if you then solve the problem, you get another problem touchy because you've solved the problem. My main point, however, though, is that I accept there's going to be a gimmick, or whatever you want to call it, to some level. What I cannot get my head around of this one, and what is a complete nonsense to me, is that you've got a situation where drivers would happily turn down a British touring car podium, something that I would kill for, to give themselves a better shot of winning another race. That's madness. And you say it out loud, that is absolutely nonsensical. And I know that for some drivers like your Suttons, your Ingrams, your Turkingtons to a degree, they've got a lot of podiums. What's another one to them? But I think it's just nonsense that you would trade off having a trophy in the cabinet at home, a podium stat to your name, to give yourself a chance. Not a guarantee, by the way, because you can be punted off or you can have a problem. A chance of winning race 2. That is ridiculous. That cannot be right.
Here's a question for you. If there was prize money for podium finishers, do you think that would change?
Yes, but you shouldn't have to necessarily incentivize a podium. This is the pinnacle of tin top racing, apparently.
In the UK.
In the UK. And you are going to turn down the chance of silverware because you might improve your chances for a race 2 win. That's nonsensical to me. And I think that if you're going to have the hardest tyre or limited boost, it's one or the other. You can't do both. We've seen a couple of years ago with Camish at Snetterton, him start on pole, I think it was, he won the race 1. He finished like 14th, 15th, 16th. Can't remember what it was. Yeah, it was pointless in racing. It was pointless in competing race 2. And that's my point, is that, yes, okay, if we're going to have to do some punishment, fine. But it can't be to the level we've got it, where it's so... If you win race 1, you're basically guaranteeing that you're not going to finish in the top 10 for race 2, unless there's extenuating circumstances, rain. We did see it a little bit at Alton Park, which I think, to be fair, last year was a bit of an anomaly for tyres as well, is that the pack didn't get to the top 3 quick enough for all of them to fall down the order.
Agreed.
But that was an anomaly last year as well, where Ingram was able to finish. Exactly. Yeah. But I just think to myself that if you are giving touring car drivers a chance to give them a podium for a shot of a race win, that's beyond ridiculous. That is not how sport should work, in my opinion. I think it's ridiculous rule. I think that it's one or the other. And personally, I go with the tyres. I keep the boost. Is my opinion.
Yeah, it's always difficult to get that balance, and we accept that, or we've got to accept sometimes that the championship and the rule makers do get things wrong. I think they probably have on this occasion, and you never know. We'll probably see another change for next season.
I think as well, towards the end of last year, I'm not seeing it so much this year, but towards the end of last year, drivers were literally saying, well, that's race 2 done, on camera in their interview, saying that we can't win race, that's it then. We've won race 1, we're not going to finish in the top, or slagging off how bad the tyres are on interview, which I can understand as well, by the way, but it's just not a good look for the sport. No. To have to make drivers make that choice, and then some of the words they were saying around the tyres afterwards doesn't reflect well on what's supposed to be this premier racing series. And the other question as well is that, does it even work? Sutton is 1,000,000 points clear at the top. Sutton is getting points, and to be fair, Ingram does well on these tyres as well. The best will always rise to the top, whatever you do. So is it actually worth it? And actually, are you penalising drivers like a Rainford, like a Doble, who might, not necessarily exceed expectation in race 1, but take a podium, and then, because a podium, I'm going to argue that a podium to Rainford or Doble means more than it does to Sutton or Ingram, because they're still fairly young in their touring car career.
I agree.
So but then they're basically wiping off race 2 completely.
But you could very much then go, well, get better.
Yeah, but
do better.
But there's a limit to what you can do when you're up against Ingram and Sutton and Napa and Accelerate.
And it very much depends on the generation and the drivers that you're racing against. We had the question last time out of, how do you think the championship would be without Ingram and Sutton? And it would probably be very close. They're just generational talents who understand how to drive around the problems, as well as their team knowing.
But by doing this, you're actually making the championship less close, because you've got 2 drivers who can drive around anything. And the drivers that you might say could have a chance, I'm thinking Camish, Rainford in particular, who are 3rd and 4th at the moment, can't get near Ingram and Sutton because of the regulations, whereas Sutton and Ingram can drive around them. So actually all you're doing is making these rules that are here for close racing it's just allowing Ingram and Sutton to get further and further away. And it was the same last year as well, because both of them were 1,000,000 miles clear of 3rd place last year. Nonsense.
Let us know your thoughts on that one, because it is a really controversial one, and how you think maybe weekend formats could change, regulations can change for seasons going forward. You never know. Mr. Gal might watch, take on your comment, and make some changes.
And ban us from all future races.
Pigs.
That's us banned from all circuits. This next one comes from Matthew. We've seen some unpopular recent rule changes. Yes, we have. TTB, race to pole, etc. You must listen to my rants. And an ever-increasing budget, keeping out some great new talents, Collard, Proctor, Lloyd. But what would it take? This is a great question. What would it take for you to turn off and stop watching the touring cars? So I think we're not going to ignore the first part of the question. I think we've covered the first part of the question around regulation and costs in this video and the previous one. So I think we should focus on what would it take.
When I looked through these questions, I looked at that one, and I think this is probably the most difficult one for me to answer personally.
Because it's an addiction. I say this about my football team all the time. I won't watch them again. They're boring to watch. I hate it. Arne Slot has ruined the club. And then you best believe next Sunday afternoon kickoff, I'm watching the game.
What doesn't help with that is obviously doing what we do now. We're
obliged.
Not consigned or obliged necessarily, but we do it with passion. We do it to be able to bring you guys our take on it.
Let's assume we didn't have the podcast and answer from that point of view. I think one thing that worries me in particular is that ITV has just sold its sporting branch to Sky.
Yeah.
And I would say that if touring cars went behind a paywall, I would potentially struggle to justify it, because of cost of living, because of other commitments, etc. And actually, do I say this? I don't think touring cars is worth paying for behind a paywall.
My argument for that is, yes, okay, they've been taken over by Sky, but you pay for your football. Yeah, and I understand you have a different passion towards your team than you may necessarily do towards touring cars.
Yeah, but football's on more often.
I know. If you're getting that as part of the deal anyway.
That's the question. That's the question. If it's part of the deal and paying for, then fine. But what I'm saying is I think it would turn a lot of people off who don't like football or don't like other sports, who won't want to pay for Sky Sports just to watch the touring cars. For me, it's different, because I watch the I watch F1, football, cricket, the darts. The Sky Sports package for me Yeah,
works, but I
I
understand that.
But if I didn't
touring
like any of the
cars may
sport,
be their only sport that people follow.
I think of my dad who doesn't like sport apart from the odd bit of motorsport. He wouldn't. I don't think he'd pay for Sky just to watch touring cars. I think a lot of people out there. I don't think your mum would pay Sky to watch touring cars.
No, that's right.
So that would probably would it turn me off? Maybe not. But I think it will turn a lot of people off.
I think even if we had the sort of competition and the low lights that we had of the championship, maybe in the early 2000s, I still think I'd probably watch it, and that's more for the storylines that we had at that point, possibly in the competition between the drivers and how angsty it got sometimes. It still provided that entertainment for me. So, and you may make this point with F1. I enjoy watching F1. I like the technical aspect of it. I have drivers that I specifically support and look for within the results. But you may find it boring.
I think it helped that the drivers you like won for many, many years. I think if they weren't winning,
Possibly.
you would be less interested because you were less interested when Verstappen dominated the year.
Yeah.
And you don't like Verstappen, and you were less
There
interested.
were still British drivers there that I was
supporting. But you weren't anywhere near as into it as you were before.
For me to turn off the touring cars, I think would be very difficult. And
I agree.
It would almost be that the championship would have had to have closed down for a season or two for me to go, okay.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back to the early 2000s, and we'd have to have that for a sustained period of very small grids. I'm not going to say bad talent.
Not giving us much to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not going to say bad talent pool because there was still a good talent pool in the early 2000s. But I think that coupled with a drying up of drives, I'm slightly worried by how many touring car drivers are leaving to go to other sports. It's well within their rights to, and I can understand why they want to try other sport. But I would hate to be in a situation where we don't have any champion on the grid apart from last year's one, if that makes sense. At the minute, we've still got champions from years gone by on the grid. I think, a smaller grid would turn me off, and I think that particularly if that smaller grid led to a smaller talent. If the smaller grid was made up of really top tier drivers, that might change things. But if the smaller grid was gentleman drivers, club racing, that would probably turn me off watching it. But like you, I think I'd find it very difficult because at this stage it is an addiction. I love watching touring cars. I love going to events. I said to you after COVID, the best thing about going to track after COVID was the smell. You could smell the oil, you could smell the petrol or synthetic fuel.
Sun cream.
Well, you don't wear that, so I didn't smell any of that. But yeah, exactly. So I think it's a great question, and I think we're in a really interesting period for the touring cars. Obviously, we've got an era of domination to a degree from Sutton as it is, and with Napa as well to a degree. How sustainable will that be if that happens year after year after year? Because unlike you, I did lose interest in F1, particularly during the Hamilton dominance. Not because I've got anything against Hamilton, just because you knew who was going to win. There's only two cars in the grid that could win a race most weeks, and Bottas wasn't going to sustain it over a period of time. Even when he came back as 2.0, that faded in about three races. So
how lowly for the people out there watching? How lowly would it have to get for you lot to stop watching as well? And let us know if there are any other motorsports that you watch or you did used to watch, but now you don't because it got disinteresting or whatever.
Right, we've got two more to go then, and then we should have hopefully time, I think, for the last minute one as well. So this is from C4 Racing. We've got one fun, one serious. We'll go with the serious one first, sorry. Do you agree with Alan Gow? No. Do you agree with Alan Gow, quality v quantity? If you look at the stats, 2014 had 7 champions racing in it, 2016 had 8 in contention at the final round, and 2018 had 16 different winners with a 32-car grid.
What I'm going to say to that, first of all.
Go on.
You only get one winner at the end.
Yeah, no one remembers second. Second's the first loser.
Exactly. So to me, it doesn't necessarily matter how many people are in the race throughout the season and people dropping away. It's the entertainment along the way that you get. And that could be from Nick Hamilton scoring points like he did at Donington, finishing 6th in the weather, to Sutton going and winning 9 out of the first 10 races of the season. For me, that is still exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to be controversial. I actually do agree with Alan Gow. I prefer to see a smaller grid of quality drivers than I do. There was a period with the merry-go-round that we had where every week somebody else was driving. It wasn't just at Team Hard. I think Motorbase went through a period of having Depper pop in for a race or two. I think Davenport did as well. We had a bit of time where teams were running 4 cars, but often the 4th driver just wasn't very good. I would rather see a smaller grid and have multiple champions on it and have multiple race winners or people capable of winning a race than I would have a 32 car grid, but realistically knowing only 4 drivers were of a high quality. I actually think at the minute on this grid, I don't think there's anybody that's so far off anybody else. Sutton Ingram in the distance by a mile. We know this. They are generational talents. We know this. But I actually think if you then go through, if you were to do a tier list, I think a lot of them are around the AB quality.
Yeah. What we've already seen this season is we've had 11 out of the 21 drivers take a podium. We've had 7 different winners this season already, and we're only 4 rounds in.
Yep.
And by the end of the season, we could quite easily see 10 different winners.
We could.
And possibly 18 maybe different podium sitters, depending how things fall, depending what the weather's like, depending on retirements, failures, stuff like this. There are so many variables that if you want, as was mentioned, we had 16 different winners or whatever. We could still get close to that in percentage wise as to what there is on the grid, and I still think that breeds excitement. So I think I would prefer quality over quantity myself.
I do.
I don't want people just sitting there filling cars up that are out for a Sunday drive. They can go off and do their club meetings, because in my mind that's what club meetings are for, not for the top racing series in the UK.
I also think on the quality quantity thing, I think if you're a manufacturer and you have more than 3 cars on the grid, you should have to run a rookie in the 4th. They have to provide pathways through. That is. I mean, it's not quite a question that, but I'm going to make it into an additional one. Is that I think that I'd be happy with a bigger grid if it meant we had more quote rookies, but who are making their way in the sport.
Yeah,
that's a trade-off I'm happy with. I'm less happy with, as you say, the gentleman drivers who are turning up for not for a laugh, but they're not on the way up in motorsport, as it were. So yeah, I would like to see if manufacturers are going to run more than, even maybe more than 2 cars, but certainly more than 3, that 4th seat has to be a rookie.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you can define a rookie by having less than 2 years racing experience in the series or whatever, and they can only be replaced for another rookie. I don't mind if after that 2 years they stay on. That's fine, because that's the whole point of a pathway. But if they want to replace that seat, it has to be another rookie.
The only difficulty I think you might see with that, with bringing in, quote, a rookie that hasn't been in the series for a necessarily amount of time, is what other racing experience they may have that means they still qualify to be a rookie. I think the parameters would have to be tight.
Yeah. I mean, I
get your point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not actually putting this towards Gauss and ratifying to law, but
he might see.
But yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a better pathway for younger drivers into the series. Right. A fun question. Make your perfect weekend with all the championships we have in the UK. For example, a weekend of British GT tracks and British touring cars on the same weekend.
This is quite easy for me.
Go on then, because I need a bit of time to think about it.
Okay.
And to find the YouTube comment.
The weekend that we've just had for the British Grand Prix, I think the racing that we get at the British Grand Prix for the F1 is some of the best racing that we get on the F1 calendar.
Agreed.
Throughout the season. Bring and sprinkle in the touring cars to that. 1, the publicity that the touring cars would get for, 1, racing with F1, having a crowd of, I think it was a record crowd of, 564,000 people across the 4 days, admittedly, but were at Silverstone the weekend just gone for the F1. Being able to get a crowd like that to see racing like the touring cars, and then drag in the British GTs as well. Bring in the major players for a British festival, basically, which is what the Grand Prix has now turned into.
Yes.
That, I think, would be my ideal weekend, and specifically on the long circuit.
Not allowed by law. We're not allowed to race touring cars around.
Do some sort of, maybe even make it into an endurance event. Two drivers to a car.
Oh, I'm not sure.
One pit stop in there, almost a bit like Bathurst.
I'm not sure I agree that far, but I do agree that I think touring cars should support the F1. Even if it's not a race that counts, they should have a showcase race at the F1 meet where they run 30, I don't care if it's a 30 lap race, as you say, to go for a long one. It doesn't have to count for championship points, but setting out the stall of this is touring cars.
Yep.
Stop just watching F1 and come and support British racing that you can, which is way more accessible and doesn't charge you £4,000 to park your car yet.
The amazing thing and the amazing entertainment that I think it would provide would just get people going, oh, what's this? Who are these drivers?
Yep, agreed.
And
most of them are there anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I do think that it's a real lost opportunity that touring cars aren't doing anything on the F1 weekend, particularly as F1 is always in the summer break.
And we understand that there are politics with that too.
But there shouldn't be, because we've got the FIA F4 championship within the touring cars. So, I mean, just grow up and get it sorted out. Yeah.
It's all to which host events
I think it's also,
can't and can run together.
I think it's also ego from the side of the touring cars that they don't see themselves as
I
being
think it's ego on both sides.
I think it's ego for the touring cars that they don't see themselves as, or shouldn't see themselves as, a support series of something else. However, it's F1. F1 is as popular as it's ever been. You are missing a golden chance to maximise audiences. I would go racing somewhere we don't race because it's not safe to, but let's assume we can make it safe to. I'd love to see the touring cars go at Anglesey. I think it's an incredible circuit. I'd like to see, this is the British Touring Car Championship. I'd like to see Britain represented, and we'd have a race in Wales, which is where Anglesey is.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Good.
I can confirm.
Thank you. Similarly, I wouldn't be against going back to Mondello Park, although I appreciate it's slightly harder to get to because there's a sea in the way.
It's in Britain either.
It's in Northern Ireland, isn't it?
It's in Ireland.
Is it in Ireland, is it?
It's in
Well,
Ireland,
my
yes.
apologies.
Carry on.
Fair enough. But yeah, I'd certainly like to see Anglesey on the circuit. I think it's a really exciting race circuit. I'd like to see a week. I would like to have a festival like you would do. So I would have touring cars there. I'd have the Ginetta, but big and small. I really miss that championship. I think it was one of the best support series we had on the calendar. And I think the touring car package is a lot poorer for not having it. I really do. So I'd definitely have those racing around there. I would probably have the Civic Cup. I fell in love with that when we went to the TCR. I really like the Civic Cup. I like Honda Civics, and I really like the Civic Cup, so I'd have that. And I'd also probably have the two Fiesta Championships, Junior and Big. And yeah, race out of touring cars as the headline act around Anglesey. Yeah, go with that. But I say I do agree with you entirely that they should be on the F1 just for that weekend. I'd also love to see them. It would never happen. I'd love to see them do one race abroad a year. Even if that track changes, I'd love to see him go do Zandvoort, do
it doesn't even
Portimao, do somewhere.
It doesn't even have to be that far.
No.
There are racetracks that are sprinkled very much on the edge of Europe, close to us, that we could go and do that with.
I would say if Sky are acquiring, which I believe they have done, we could potentially be closer to that because I think that there's potentially more chance of that happening under Sky than would be under ITV.
Yep.
Although for political reasons, etc., do we think it'd happen? But I'd like to see F4 go and do it, the occasional.
So the Porsches.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is quite cool, I think.
I know.
Right, we did have one more comment on YouTube. We have got time to do it, I think.
Yep.
So I missed them asking for questions. Make sure you're following the socials. That's my first bit of advice. Make sure you're following us on Facebook or Instagram because it was put out a couple of times.
We'll put the next one up on YouTube comments as well.
However, we will answer your question because we're nice people, but only if you subscribe. But I would love to have known if they thought the championship would be better without Sutton and Ingram in it. It would definitely be a lot closer and more unpredictable. I agree it'd be a lot closer.
Yes.
I agree with that. But it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you want, and I keep using the phrase, if you want to prove this is the Premier Tin Top series in the UK, you have to have the best drivers. And they are the best drivers. As simple as that. I think for an interesting point of view, then yes, I agree about them. It'd be a lot closer, a lot more unpredictable. Is that a good thing? You always want to be attracting the best talent to the sport. However, I would be fascinated to see. Well, not fascinated. If you did this last year, and I wasn't fascinated.
Well, one day there will be a championship with either Sutton or Ingram, and it depends on the other drivers that have come through. We may have drivers that come through and usurp both Sutton and Ingram in their achievements, in their race wins, their pole positions, their fastest laps, you name it. There may still be a better driver to come through. We never thought that Schumacher's record of 7 titles would ever be gotten close to, let alone matched, possibly beaten. But
actually, it's not.
There are drivers out there and possibly developments in technology, changes in regulations that can mean some drivers go through periods and dominate.
That's what would make me turn off touring cars if it was fully electric. that would make me turn off touring cars. Going back to the earlier question.
Happening anytime soon, mate.
No, because they've gone down the synthetic fuel route, thank God. But yeah, if they went going back to the earlier question, if they went electric, I'm done. Yeah, I mean, I think also that it's very easy to go, oh, Ingram and Sutton, but actually we're watching two generational talents. We may never see drives this good again. I know you just said that we don't know what's coming through, but equally the reverse is true. We may never see greatness like this again in the sport. So enjoy it. Enjoy the drives while they're on the grid, because they won't be on the grid forever. And what they are both achieving is just ridiculous. The consistency they put in, week out, year in, year out, is absolutely unmatched through touring car history, or certainly for the history I've been watching. So yeah, I understand that people be saying, oh, it is a bit boring because it's predictable that those two will always do well. And actually that bears fruit when we do our predictions, that if one of us doesn't put Sutton and the other one does, then you guarantee you're losing points.
Yep.
But you've also got to enjoy it, because you're watching two drivers who are top of their game and masters of their craft.
Yeah. Thank you for all the questions so far. And if you do have any others, do let us know in the comments down below, or DM us, Instagram, Facebook, all the normal places. I'm sure we'll be bringing up another Q&A session, possibly even at the end of the season, if not into next one. Do make sure you're subscribed down below. Get that bell on. Make sure you like all of our posts, because they all help with the interactions that we get, and we appreciate them very much.
Yeah, just a massive thank you from us to say, this was a new style of podcast. We've never done the Q&A before, and when you put the post up, you do sort of look at each other and go, what if we don't get any questions? But actually,
don't put anything out.
But to have enough questions to fill two podcasts is genuinely amazing. So thank you ever so much for engaging with us. As I say, if this is the sort of content you like to see, there's no reason we can't do more of these as the seasons develop. But yeah, a massive thank you for getting involved. We're always quite proud that this is an interactive channel, that we do try and speak with you through social media. We do try and answer as many comments and messages as we can.
And at events.
And at events as well. But yeah, it's always great to see the interaction with us. So thank you very much indeed.
It won't be long now until we're making our way ourselves to Thruxton.
No? Okay.
We could edit a version of that.
Carefully.
Yeah. We'll be making our way to Thruxton, so we will have a preview for you before we get to there. And enjoy it.
I hope it's not hot.
So do I. I hope it's not wet though as well.
I'd take rain at this point. Rain at Thruxton is fun.
But until next time, we'll see you soon.
Take care for now. Yeah, they are hard chairs.